We're coming, and we ain't backing down.
We don't need a bunch of cats in here looking in the mirror.
Everybody just do your job. You understand that?
Hey, will you shut up?
I'm bitterly disappointed with the officiating today.
Guys being dudes.
And they run through our like through a tin horn, man.
Thank you, Lee. Split Zone Duo. Thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing on Substack, splitzoneduo.com. We have this week the safest bet in sports on the podcast. It is Nate Tice. It is Nate Tice talking about something he's passionate about, which is quarterback play. It is. Which means Nate Tice is going to go over. We have an allotted time for this podcast because I have to go pick up some dining room chairs.
Oh.
Or the person who I live with is going to murder me as we put our apartments together. But Nate Tice, I have allotted for Nate Tice to go over. So we'll see how this goes. Nate, how are you doing this fine Friday?
I'm doing very well. Yeah. Safest bet, me going over on a pod. I mean, the safest bet. It is Service Academy unders and Nate Tice going over on a pod. Where are you getting the dining room set from? Where are the chairs?
I have to go to Park Slope. I have to drive down to Park Slope and get some nice dining room chairs off Facebook Marketplace. Facebook Marketplace.
Phenomenal.
I don't have a Facebook anymore.
I don't either.
But Facebook Marketplace is getting the job done these days.
When we moved into our place here, my wife became a maestro at Facebook Marketplace. We got like because we turned our garage into like a half gym kind of thing, and we got like a mirror, like full length mirror, like I mean, was something out of the gym for like $60. And then you looked online because we were looking. I was like, oh, well, how much were those? $100 online, and it was like $480. $640, and it's like she got for like $60-$80, and I was like, I love my wife. It's just like I canceled my Facebook years ago, so this has been great.
The problem with New York Facebook Marketplace is that people don't discount or people are buying whatever it is at such a high level that the discount is like, Jesus Christ, man.
I didn't even think about the New York one too. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Vegas is pretty interesting too because we get a little mixed. You get a lot of old casino stuff here. So like we had outdoor furniture from I think like the Tropicanda's old furniture that we got on discount. It was like 10%, like or 90% off. Like so, it was like but we got that. It was like never used. It was like extra that they had or something like that. So Vegas resale stuff could be a little interesting, I'm sure, as it is in NYC.
Yeah, we do not have Nate Tice on the show this week for his prowess on the Vegas resale market. We do have him on for his article that he wrote on one Shedeur Sanders. Perhaps you heard of him. Boy, I think that this season for Shedeur Sanders and Colorado is going to be particularly insufferable, especially when we get to the draft component. Because this year's class of quarterbacks, I think, is interesting. Because there isn't really we have Carson Beck, and like that's pretty much it. We don't really have anybody that right now, today, at the end of May, you can sit here and say, all right, lock, stock, barrel, number one pick or first round pick. And then we have Shedeur Sanders, who is going to be gassed as a first round pick for, the reasons that I think we can all assume. And we will get to, because I think it's interesting, we'll get to your experience after writing this story. But before we get to that, I do want to talk about the story itself and the critical analysis that you did on Shedeur Sanders' game. Where do you have him if he had to start a professional football game tomorrow, which we know that he don't, but where would you have him, draft stock and as a prospect and as a player?
And I think that's with all these guys, if you want to do it right, and especially studying, and now that I know that I'm a part of the draft process now, so it's nice that I can get ahead on some of these guys. But a guy like Shedeur, he was dipping his toes into maybe the draft waters last year, so I was kind of already keeping an eye on him outside of just the hoopla surrounding Colorado. I was watching him as a prospect. But as just studying him off of 2023 film, and this is why this is the want to be fair because guys do improve usually their last seasons, is I had him, he would have been essentially quarterback 7 in this past class for me. Maybe even 8, if now that I think about it. 1, 2, 3, they went 6, 7. It actually real quarterback 8. He would have been quarterback 8.
And that tier was where? That's like past the Bo Nix tier. Where?
Yes, that's third roundish tier, late third. mid third, somewhere where there. Quarterbacks get inflated, so it's one of those like, yeah, if you take him early third, maybe even late second, I'd understand. But it's with Sanders, watching him, and just what I wanted to do with my article on Yahoo, especially because it seems, and I know you know this more than anyone, you can't. It doesn't seem any discussion is about his on-field play. It's always about everything else.
Yeah. Welcome to my life.
So that was my point in my article. We are outside of any real hype around him because, it's not college football season. Spring ball's gotten a little dead. It's the draft. And I thought it was just a great time where there's the most recent thing that's come out about him was him, bashing some of his old teammates, his dad, Deion Sanders saying that he's going to go top 5. So I kind of was like, is he? Like, I'm going to watch him. I'm going to just study him like he is coming out tomorrow. Like this is, and so I wanted to be fair and say that he can improve. And watching him and watching, I think there is a disconnect between how Shedeur plays and what you would assume Deion Sanders' son plays quarterback like. He is a lot more boring. He's a lot safer. He's a lot more mechanical than you would assume. And the thing is that he is so well coached in some areas and so mechanical in some areas that it limits his ability to play football and ability to kind of just go out there and play loose and go out there and create something. I think that when the bullets start flying and the pressure starts coming around, even on stuff when the pockets were clean, there's a lot of times that he would move backwards in the pocket, which is usually a huge red alert that a guy's not very comfortable.
So yeah, that is, when I watch him, that is the thing that jumps off the screen when plays go negative. That falling back in the pocket. I've referred to it in the past on the show as like a Madden drop back.
That's it.
And you get on Madden and you just stick, jack the left stick back and you just like fall back 30 yards. Cade Klubnik at Clemson was doing this in spades early in his career. It's unbelievable. You write in the story, and I think it's a really good point, the knock-on effects that it has on an offense. It allows edge rushers to get a better angle on you. It makes throws longer than they otherwise should be.
Physics.
It changes your mechanics because you're falling backwards. It leverage all this sort of stuff. And I think it's an interesting point. So for you, young quarterbacks do that, right? And that has to be beat out of a lot of them. Stepping up in the pocket, it seems so simple, but it really is the antidote to a lot of quarterbacks' issues. But it is so hard because essentially you are asking a quarterback to get closer to the threat.
Yes.
Like you are asking, and Tom Brady is like the best ever at that, right? At climbing up a pocket, at getting nearer to the danger.
Yes.
To essentially mitigate it, which it's pocket awareness, it's pocket presence, but it's crazy, and it's a skill that must be taught.
It is, and like you said, beat out of them is usually what has to happen. They have to have negative plays. A lot of college guys that are better athletes in college get away with it, and so what for me as a guy assessing some of these players going to the NFL, Malik Willis is the number one example. To me, it was that's all he did was bail out around the pocket because he was such a good athlete. And it's like, you might get to do that once in a season in the NFL because those DNs are so good. But really, it's a comfort level. It is like a boxer or a combat athlete leaning into the punch. Someone throws a hook, you got to lean into it to not get hit. You don't lean away from the hook and as you go with the punch and get hit and get grazed. You have to duck under into the punch. And that's what getting up into the pocket is. The more dangerous area is actually the area they don't want you to be because it's like, oh, shoot, we can't get, there's 3 blockers right there. And Shedeur, and usually that's a huge warning sign for me. I will ding a lot of quarterbacks, like Jaden Daniels was one that had that habit a little bit as well, but he did get better a little bit this last year with it, is that I ding guys that they don't have that because no successful NFL quarterback does that. Jalen Hurts, other than a couple.
The pocket presence, yeah. The pocket presence thing, it's not just with an eye to the NFL. We're talking about on Saturdays. Yes, there are adverse effects on Saturdays.
Wasn't he number one sack rate and pressure to sacks and all these things? Like there's no, and that was the other thing too, why I wanted to bring up he's mechanical and a little bit robotic with his play. It's not that he bails backwards and it's like he's creating something crazy and doing a good play. Like Jalen Hurts gets away with this in the NFL. He creates some stuff outside of it. He takes sacks. He bails backwards and then just tucks it and takes the hit. And I'm fine with it. And I got told on Instagram many of times after I wrote this Yahoo article, he only threw 2 picks or 3 picks last year. He only threw 3 interceptions. When you don't put the ball in harm's way, you're not going to throw a lot of interceptions. Sacks are negative plays too. Sacks can actually be worse than interception. You could throw an interception 30 yards down the field. It could act like a punt. A sack could be an 18-yard loss, and you're out of field goal range. And I saw Shedeur several times take those types of sacks. They're at like the 32. They're at like the 30. They're kind of in field goal range. And then he takes like a 15-yard sack. And then now they have to punt it. And that kind of lack of awareness with it, like you said, you already brought it up, like it makes everything difficult. It makes tackles' life harder. It makes his own life harder. It creates harder situations. He also doesn't really push the ball to mitigate some of that.